If you could pick, how do you wanna die? Like my uncle, he died in his mid-90s, just a few years after his wife died. He was a retired physician. He got a cancer diagnosis that he knew was fatal, but he had some time, so he spent his remaining months touring the country, seeing his kids, grandkids and great-grandkids, his nephews and nieces, friends, etc. He had a grand old time. Then, pretty much exactly to the timetable he had estimated, he took a bad turn. He summoned his kids who took turns talking with him at his bedside in hospice. At one point, my cousin Chris was with him as he faded in and out of consciousness. The phone rang. Chris answered and said, "No, Dad's not conscious right now. This is not a good time." But his dad perked up. "Who is that?" he asked. "Just some friends of yours," said my cousin, who handed the phone to my uncle. They exchanged a few words. Then the friends arrived 20 minutes later with a couple bottles of amazing vintage wine. My cousin said, "No, Dad, you're on a lot of painkillers. Alcohol would be a very bad idea." My uncle laughed and said, "Well, what's the worst that could happen?" There was an awkward silence and then everyone started laughing. The wine was delicious and he lasted another 48 hours. That's how I want to go out. That's such a great story. There's a good article out there called How Doctors Die, something like that, that talks about how most doctors die at home, while most other people die in a hospital. Your uncle being a doctor made me think about that, and it sounds like your uncle was in that boat. Thanks for sharing this story. Smile. He sort of reminds me of my own father, who was a physician and surgeon. He had some mini strokes and after each one, dementia appeared and got worse, but he stayed sweet and active and trying to join in the conversation whenever he could. Everyone loved him. At the end, I rushed to the hospital. His eyes were closed. I held his large hand. I shouted, "Dad." He opened one eye and looked at me with a small smile. Then he let go and never opened his eyes again. As long as I held his hand, even as a grown woman, I felt safe. Even though he was in a coma, that hand always made me feel safe. He always loved me and I loved him. When I let go of his hand, the world was different for me. Even now, 14 years later, I think he was waiting to see me one more time. Then he slipped away, but never out of my heart. No, never out of my heart. Like my grandma, her heart stopped suddenly while sleeping. Must have been painless. Changed my mind. I just remembered she died alone, without having anyone around for 1 week. She had 13 kids, which are my aunts and uncles, so I guess she was used to have people around. Pretty sad. I wondered, if your heart stops beating, are you still alive for a few minutes and eventually die from hypoxia or whatever it is? If awake, you'll only be so for a few seconds. Death is a process rather than a single event. It would depend how you're defining being dead. But yes, technically, if your heart isn't pumping blood around, then your brain isn't getting the bits it needs, mainly oxygen, and ice from that. Can you bring back someone who dies from natural causes if you are there? Likely not. It's due to the fact, as another commenter mentioned, death is a process and usually not a single event. Even though a single event may have caused it, you would need to reverse all the causes and prevent the brain from being damaged. This is how resuscitation works. However, even if you were able to resuscitate someone, the longer they have been dead increases the chances of severe brain damage. This is why keeping a patient hypothermic is so critical in some cases. Keeping the body extremely cold delays some of death's process and preserves the brain. When you start asking these questions, you discover there isn't really any specific thing you can call dead. You kind of just have to pick something, and you might pick different things in different contexts. You can pick a lack of heartbeat, and that's usually a pretty decent thing to pick, because if you can't get a heart beating, usually they're not coming back. But when people's hearts stop, they typically don't just stop either. They have brief little restarts, flutters, beats, etc. Sometimes they start beating again, without blood flow. The brain starts accumulating damage basically right away, but the damage is basically continuous. So what point do you call dead? When the damage is such that they can't breathe on their own. There are people who we don't consider dead who can't breathe on their own, and depending on the patient's age and the injury, there are crazy effects of plasticity we don't fully understand, and people can end up compensating for some truly insane brain injuries. The same happened to my grandmother. She had her afternoon coffee and a piece of cake, sat down into her relaxing chair, fell asleep and didn't wake up anymore. The doctor told us he rarely saw someone that went that peaceful. Her heart just gently stopped beating. She was 90 years old and had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's just a few months earlier, and it would have been a lot worse to see her struggle against the disease, so we were grateful to see her go the way she did. I have this fear that death is like a computer crashing and having the last thing that was running just stuck on the screen. Perhaps you feel your last sensation for all eternity since the corporeal body tethering your sense of self to this existence is not longer functioning. So yeah, my fear is that you just feel being exploded for the rest of time. Or even worse, to get to your killer the mech would have to go through a lot of other enemies, killing everyone that gets in their way. Then when they are about to finally make your killer give up the habit of breathing, he goes, "No. Killing is wrong, I'm not a killer, I'm better than this." Looks up to the heavens, "Isn't that right, Sensei Tomato?" Like, bitch, you killed half of the world's population, don't pull that crap on me now. But once you cross the event horizon border you will be able to look at the back of your own head and see yourself going into infinity because of how light gets so fucked up. It's like a kaleidoscope apparently. My suggestion: dose up before launching yourself and enjoy the most mind-bending trip of your life before being spaghettified. Edit: I'm gonna source this. It's a fun step-by-step of what happens when you enter. Should answer a couple questions. Spaghettification is only a threat with normal-sized black holes. It is totally plausible to survive falling past the event horizon of a supermassive black hole as the differential gravity will not be that bad. In theory you'd then be smashed between the infalling and outflying singularities, the idea being that due to time differentials, you would catch up to things that fell in before you, but things that fell in after you would catch up with you. So you'd still be 100% fucked, unless you fell into your daughter Murph's bookcase because of love. My grandmother legit died this way. She was having mild dementia and in nursing care, so they were monitoring her. They said she got up in the middle of the night, took a wee, walked back towards bed. She paused at the mirror, fixed her hair a bit with a smile and laid back down. Passed away a short time later. Best way to go by far. Great-grandpa for me, lived in his own home and was still mowing his own lawn at 100 years old. Showed up for a routine physical. Doctor noticed some of his tests were off, so he went to the hospital, found out he had cancer, and it was spreading quick. No pain, but it was clear he didn't have long. All 3 of his surviving kids flew in and spent his last few days with him. From the first biopsy to his death was less than a week, in a soft bed, surrounded by loved ones, still lucid and physically capable, holding his daughter's hand as he peacefully drifted off. That is honestly my ideal death. I'd like to die riding a great white shark through a powerful tornado. Thinking maybe F4 or 5, wearing a suit of chainmail and a shield on my back. Our bodies are found somewhere in the central United States. Short clips are circulated around the internet from those chasing the storm cell. Researchers and historians will be stumped as to how the shark and I ended up in such a powerful storm and how we ended up so far from the ocean. Was somewhere around Ottawa about 20 years ago when this guy I used to work with was a kid. He was out on the ice on the Ottawa River and fell through. A stranger went into the water to get him and managed to get him out, but then was struggling with some ice and ended up going under. It really kind of F up this guy for a while, but eventually he really turned it around into a positive attitude. At one point in time, I would have read this and been confused by "I hope it won't be suicide," because I would have thought, isn't it a choice? But a couple years ago, I have been there, where you feel out of control and betrayed by your mind. I had thoughts I never realized I'd be capable of having. Basically, I read your comment and I thought, I hope you're doing okay and I wish you well. So female dolphins have vaginal secretions that make a male dolphin just come over and over and over. From this point on, I will call these secretions dolphin pussy jelly. Scientists were like, holy shit, dude, we gotta test this, you know, for science. So the scientists collected a sample of said dolphin pussy jelly, and had a test primate. They swabbed it on the male primate's dick, sat back and watched the show. Now you see, it worked, but it worked a little too well. The monkey straight up had a heart attack because it used all of its energy into fucking coming. I want to live in a world where this is a commercial product. I want to say, you know what? I want to die and I know what to do about it. I want to live in a world where I can go into my local grocery store, pick up a bottle of Smucker's dolphin pussy jelly, and just fucking cum myself to death like this. Not being scooped up while scuba divining and dumped in a forest fire by a fire plane. Edit. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and everyone else who is LGBTQ+, love you all. Now I will reveal where I got the most over-top death in existence. Drum roll please, drum roll noises. I got it from a Randy Felt-Face comedy sketch. Shout out to Heath McKiver who plays him. You are super cool, bro. Here is a link to it: https://2.b/qp4xmemc4. Thanks for the 1000 upvotes and 2 awards. I hope you all give a great day. For real, I've been watching lots of series with my family. I introduced them to Breaking Bad and I'd love for them to watch the first 4 seasons of God but not the rest, and it's gonna be awkward to see Tyrion escape and then know, okay, it's over everyone, what are you talking about? We're only halfway through. Read the books, or watch until 6 and then just stop. No way I'm watching this. Bye. A horrendously rushed ending with every character acting like an idiot, throwing away many built-up plot lines, and discarding the previously grounded and gritty approach for early 2000s-esque generic fantasy drivel. It was so bad that while I consider seasons 1 through 4 some of the best TV to ever hit the air, I haven't been able to bring myself to rewatch any part of the series knowing just how garbage the ending is. I hope D&D never find work again. The fan outrage was enough to get them booted from Star Wars, at least. Dan and Dave really fucked the dog on that one. I mean, I am shocked that Hollywood, or at least HBO, didn't crucify them for their failure. Like, literally nail them to a cross as a warning to other directors not to fuck things up. I remember people in the office, I work in a state government department, telling people that if they ruin the Sunday episode they will kick their ass. Like, we get in trouble with HR just for using the word ass, and during this period HR was, oh, they were talking about Sunday's episode on Monday morning, stupid motherfucker. Okay, head back to your desk, I'll talk with them. And then the last episode hit and that Monday we just talked about work. They murdered their own series, dragged it out back, buried in the backyard, and they pretended like that was the plan all along. If you see interviews of them when they were asked about plot holes, they cheekily smile and shrug like it's no big deal. I guess she just forgot about the Iron Fleet, smiles and chuckles. I have friends that have loyally followed every book, comic, short story, and new snippet GRRM put out about the next book, and I mean 2 books ago we did this, now saying they just don't care anymore or decided to stop reading the series. Dan and Dave killed the series so hard, they killed the enthusiasm for the book. Infinite poop. You sit on the toilet to poop, but the poop never stops coming out of your butt. You have to start flushing the toilet every 2 minutes to keep up. You try to pinch your butt closed but that makes your insides hurt. The poop accelerates. You call 911. The paramedics call for doctors. The doctors call for specialists. The story trends on Twitter. You turn down talk show appearances. Your septic tank fails. People form a cult. Your toilet is finished. Volunteers arrive with buckets and shovels. You are completely used to the smell. The poop accelerates. You are moved to a stepladder with a hole in the top step. The poop accelerates. The shovelers abandon the buckets and shovel directly out the window. The poop accelerates. A candlelight vigil forms around your house. One of the workers falls over and can't free himself. The poop accelerates. A priest knocks over the stepladder and tackles you out the window. You land in the pile. The poop accelerates. The force now propels you forward and upward. Vigil goers grab at your legs. The poop ignites from their candles. The Facebook Live event hits 1 million viewers. The poop accelerates. You are 30 feet in the air. The fire engulfs the vigil and your house. 60 feet. The poop accelerates. The torrent underneath you is deafening. 5 million Facebook Live viewers. You try to close up shop but your butthole disintegrated long ago. 120 feet up, your house explodes. The poop accelerates. 1,000 feet, you are now tracked on radar. You try to change your angle of ascent but you should have thought of that way earlier. The poop accelerates. 4,000 feet, NORAD upgrades to DEFCON 3. Concentric circles of fire engulf your city. The poop accelerates. You have broken the sound barrier. 30,000 feet, you no longer take in enough oxygen to sustain consciousness. 60,000 feet, CNN is reporting on all the world records you've broken. 200,000 feet, you are no longer alive. The poop accelerates. Your body disintegrates but your poop contrail remains. NASA can no longer track you. You break the light speed barrier, and we can no longer bear witness. The poop accelerates, forever. All their comments are either allusions to the story without actually giving details, which seems like baiting for attention, or casual jokes and meme references, which seems odd for an account with such a serious alleged purpose. Add to it that they allegedly use their real name, and claim to live in fear that their husband will find them, or the fact that they posted their story once in our confession 2 days ago, and never again even though it was removed, except for one comment after someone asked about it. Head-on car collision, I-71 northbound, June 16, 2027 at 3:27 a.m. I was asked this question 4 years ago during my senior year of high school. Wasn't even we big attention to the conversation but I instinctually answered those without pause or hesitation and pretty much verbatim. It was like, you know when you think code that's gonna fall over in a split second it does exactly that. Almost the gut instinct that's always right. It was like that, so I've told so many people at this point that I'm hoping it's true. The way I see it I'll either die right or be wrong and alive law. This will sound morbid, but after a diagnosis of a terminal illness, I want to know it's coming. I want time to get my affairs in order and say all the things I want to say to people before I am gone. I would quit my job, give away my money, have a few adventures, spend time with those I love, and maybe do one of those living funeral type things. Ideally I would have access to good pain management and the illness wouldn't prevent me from doing too much of that. The death itself would hopefully be swift and painless, but I would have had months to prepare for it.